What's going on, guys? Brad Messersmith of the Fantasy Golf Degenerates bringing you another expert model breakdown on the fantasyfanatics.com. Today, we are talking about the Honda Classic, a classic indeed, playing at PGA National. Gonna, as always, take a look at the tournament details up here at the top of the page. We're at the cheat sheet here. As usual, if you guys want to see all of my model, including the statistics, all of the targets I pick, and the information I use to build lineups, you can do so by becoming a premium member on the fantasyfanatics.com. Get over there, sign up. There will be a link in the description. You can get a hold of the cheat sheet, which is where we're going to start, including a whole bunch of other really useful tools that are going to help make you a better DFS player. So, like I said, PGA National Resort, it's a par 70. We'll get back to that in just a moment. 7140 in terms of yardage, something to take note of. I always like to start by looking up at the top there and just getting a little bit of information. So this week in the model, we are going to be covering, as I mentioned, DraftKings points gained in par 70 events. This is a statistic that is going to be a staple in my models. You'll see some sort of DraftKings points gained metric show up in almost all of my models. So in this case, it's got a 3 weighting, which is a little bit lower than the top stats we've had in the past. So I think you'll see a little bit of interesting results in the model if you do decide to download it yourself. Par 4 scoring shows up in the trends tool quite a bit, so we have that in there. With par 70 courses, it's typically a stat that shows up as somewhat relevant. Strokes gained approach and strokes gained tee to green. Seems like intrinsically this is a course that is going to be a second shot course for the most part. Both of these stats should correlate well to guys who are going to be playing their second shots with accuracy and gaining strokes that way. Green and regulation also shows up a little bit in the trends tool, and then some long range approach shots, 225 to 250, seem to be a yardage distance that is showing up as relevant this week. So all of that being said, you can see I've got stats weighted at 75%, recent form 15%, and course history at 10%. So let's get into some of the targets. First and foremost, you'll see at the top of the model, we've got 3 of the pretty high-priced guys, Sergio down to Ricky. I didn't mark Sergio to talk about, but I think he is a pretty good value. He's probably going to make my cash lineup this week. And at the discount you get a $1,000 discount between Sergio and Ricky. I think there's certainly some merit to taking that $1,000, especially with the fact that we don't have pricing that is as soft as it's been the past month or so on DraftKings. But getting into it, Adam Scott, 12,200. This should be no surprise here, especially knowing that this is a second shot course. Adam Scott is a second shot specialist. I think at this point we've learned that and learned it well. He's coming in with pretty good form with an 11th place finish. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Let's scroll over here and take a look. I'll try not to make you guys too sick. It was last week. So he has exceptional course history, obviously, as the past champion. Really, really good play this week, I think, despite the high price tag. Ownership, I think he will be popular, although I'm not sure I'm sold on that 28% number just yet. I think his price will keep people off of him a little bit. That being said, there's not a whole lot that says you shouldn't play Adam Scott, so I expect him to be at least somewhat popular. Dropping down a little bit, Jason Duffner, I think is another guy who could make your cash lineup. Will be playing him in some GPPs. Really fits the course well. He is a second shot guy, a really good kind of green and regulation second shot type golfer. Seems to grind out made cuts, and you're going to need some guys like that. Like I said, my only concern I think with Duffner is his upside, but at 7,500, it's not something I'm overly concerned about. Will be playing some Duffner. Robert Garrigus is a guy who shows up pretty heavily in this model, as well as some of the statistical work I do outside of the fantasyfanatics.com, and is a guy that I'm going to be targeting pretty heavily in GPPs. Obviously, with a $7,100 price tag, you're going to get some volatility. I don't expect his ownership to be overly high, but when you look at the stats, boy, he is a pretty good fit here. The only, I think, black mark on his resume here is his 68th place finish in par, or 68th place rank in par 4 scoring. So definitely going to be a guy I target a lot. He's playing decently, and as far as I remember, he has 3 of 4 made cuts dating back to 2009. Doesn't really have too many too many high finishes, but at 7,100, I'm not overly concerned about that. I think if he makes the cut and finds his way up into that kind of top 25 range, he could be on a GPP winning team. Dropping down a little bit more in salary, Seamus Power is the min price and comes up 12th overall in my stats model. He is a guy who has sort of been mentioned as kind of a golfer who could be a lot stronger than he seems, at least on the surface right now. A lot of people talk about him as a very, very talented golfer. Has played on some big stages, including the Olympics. So not sure how relevant that is here. It's a bit of a weaker field, but somebody who I think could have some upside in GPPs, and seeing the stats fit as well as they do is a guy that I am going to plan on rostering a little bit. Brooks Koepka. I think that at this point, most people are probably a little bit sick of Brooks Koepka. He was not overly popular last week when he was extremely underpriced. I don't remember what his price was, but he's 7,500 this week. Not a difficult price tag to want to take Brooks Koepka at. Despite the fact that he is not playing very well, Brooks Koepka still fits the mold here statistically. And we've seen it many times before. Golfers can round into form and find their stride and all of a sudden knock out a top 10 or a top 5. And with how skilled Brooks Koepka is, he's the 20th ranked golfer in the world and is only 7,500. I think there's nobody more likely to do that than Brooks Koepka. So sign me up. I'll be taking more than the field of Brooks Koepka, and I won't be looking back if he misses the cut. Anirban Lahiri is a guy who I am going to be pretty bullish on this entire year at 6,600. He is almost the min price, and he is one of the more skilled golfers in this field. I know that may be a little bit of a bold call there, but Anirban Lahiri, I think, is way more talented than what people give him credit for. He is starting to round into form. He has made, 4 cuts in his last 4 events, including 3 top 25s and a 7th place finish. Obviously, we don't want to overreact to recent form, but knowing the fact that I think Anirban Lahiri is extremely overly talented for the price tags that he's coming in at, I don't mind overreacting a little bit to recent form and taking more of him than the field, which should not be much. I don't expect him to be extremely popular. He could come over that 0.8%, probably something like a couple percent. He may get bumped up before the end of the week, but certainly not anything like 15% or anything like that. So having 10 to 15% of him should be enough to put you overweight. I believe that is going to be it. So if you guys have any other questions or you have concerns, issues with the ownership projections, issues with the model, things that don't make sense, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at BMSDFS. I am always happy to answer any of the questions that I get throughout the week as best I can. And I am always tweeting out content and information from other people. So make sure to get over to my Twitter and follow me for everything that I put out throughout the week. And other than that, that's going to do it for us. We will catch you guys next time.